Hello, everyone. It's Sunday once again. It's a brand new month. It's the first Sunday of the month, and I'm really excited about our guest this week. It's now, I'm really sorry, it's now nearly 2:30 in the afternoon in the UK, 10:30 in the evening in Manila, and it's 8:30 in the morning in Chicago, where our amazing drummer cast is actually coming to us live from, and I'm really glad that he's here. Yeah, this week's guest. Oh my god, I don't know what to say. I was actually really nervous because he's so incredibly talented. Apart from being a drummer, he's also a singer, a guitarist, visual artist, painter, comic strip illustrator. I think he has a record label as well, and I believe he's a legend in Chicago. And according to Wikipedia, he's known for being very funny. So, and I do love people who've got great sense of humor. So, absolutely amazing. My dear friends, please welcome Jon Langford.
Good morning. What a build-up. That was fantastic.
Good morning. Good morning, John.
Sorry I
Um,
was late. I was fiddling with my phone trying to make it work, and it took a while.
oh no, it's all right. I'm just really glad that you're here. And how are you? How are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. I haven't had a cup of tea yet, so but I'm all
Oh
right.
no, I was gonna say, have you already had your breakfast?
No, nothing like that.
No.
I went out
Um.
to a gig last night. I wasn't thinking I was going to go, but it was really good. There was a label we were on in Chicago called Touch and Go Records, and
Yeah.
they had a kind of reunion. So all the staff that used to work at the offices, and then a band called June of '44, who were one of the bands on the label, played last night, and
All right.
it was great. I never really go to gigs. I just normally I'm playing. I'm normally playing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was in London last night as well to see the Loft because it's like, yeah, it was like, I don't, I'm not sure if it's a one-off reunion, but hopefully they'll do more gigs. But it was just amazing. So, you mentioned that you've not had a cup of tea yet because now that you're in America, because they're more sort of like coffee drinkers, aren't they?
I would say so. I sit on both sides of that church,
So,
but, when I'm at home in the morning, I like a cup of tea.
oh,
Old habits I had to get rid of.
yeah, yeah. It's being British, isn't it? Because British people just love tea.
Oceans of it.
What's the weather like there
It
now?
looks pretty miserable. Actually, no, the sun's out, but it's cold. So, but they predicted a big winter storm 2 days ago, and we were kind of
Oh,
like bracing ourselves for 8 inches of snow. And then
oh
I think
dear,
I think the poor people in Detroit got it instead. It missed us. So,
God, because
so
it's still
yesterday,
pretty cold. It's still
it
cold
was,
here
it
in
was cold
Scotland.
again last night as well. But I was actually could take my dog out yesterday. I was thinking it's going to be one of those weekends where we're all hunkered down. But no,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Well, that's good. Yeah, well, last time I saw you was in Leeds. It was actually the first time I saw you as well. That's where I met you in Brunel.
Yeah,
And that was the Mekons gig. And originally it was supposed to be the headliners are Scritti Politti, right? And you
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
we had two shows with them, one in London and one in Leeds, and it was kind of
yeah.
funny because when they pulled out at the last minute, I think Green had you know, he had some sort of throat infection, so they pulled out. But we lost
Yeah.
we lost about half the tickets in London. It was sold out in London, and
Yeah.
then only about 300 people came. But
Oh,
in Leeds, there was no difference.
no, but they gave us. I think they gave us sort of like a refund of £5 or something because
Did they?
Spirit Police are not on. But it was actually incredible because
Well, we had the Gang
you
of Four.
had Gang of Four, and it was just amazing because I've heard people saying that was actually like history in the making because it's we don't really see um like Hugo Burnham was there. So
Yeah,
it
no,
was just
it was a weird walk down memory lane that night because we were honoured at the university. The reason for the whole gig was this guy, Gavin Butt, Professor Gavin Butt, put out a book about the Leeds
Yeah.
music scene in the 70s. And then, you know, we were not exactly loggerheads, but they weren't, the university wasn't exactly supportive of us back in 1978, 79. And in fact,
Oh,
I dropped out when we signed with Virgin Records. And it was kind of like, you know, a kind of rough time. And so it's very weird that now that, not weird, favoured.
sorry about. Sorry. Well, we live on the main road. You see that?
No, it's the same where I live. I'm surprised they
Yeah.
haven't. They come and get both of us. But it's just really nice. So John and Hugo were there, and we went down to Fenton and had a pint down there, and
Yeah.
you know, I just relived
I,
like
I really I
huge
really enjoyed
experience.
that. I really enjoyed that gig. I was sort of like thinking, in a way, it's sort of like, well, it's a good thing that the Squiddy Pulley weren't there because you had Gang of Four there as well. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it was a very Leeds night. It was good, but we, you know, weird thing about Scritti Pulley is we were both at university. Me and Green were at college together, but he was from my hometown in South Wales.
oh
That's right.
yeah, yeah.
And I kind of knew of him. He was a bit older than me, but I didn't really know him. And then we got to know each other up in Leeds. So it would have been
Oh,
nice for everyone to see each other. So,
yeah, yeah. But yeah. So welcome to Ask the Drummer. Episode 71 is all about you, Jon Langford.
um,
So, well, you mentioned that you're from Wales, right? So can you tell us more about where were you born and also what was it like
yeah,
when you were growing up there?
my town's a dock town on the south coast of Wales, industrial town, and my dad was from Newport. My mum was from up the valleys in the mining valleys north of Newport. Um, that's pretty normal kind of middle class uprising. I hope it's uprising when it comes to Newport. But yeah, and I was very interested in, what I liked about Newport was the dock. My dad used to take me down there every Saturday morning, and we'd go and I'd spot all the boats. It was really
All right.
like a
Yeah, yeah.
train spot, but with like big cargo ships, and it was really exciting. I loved it, and to be by we were by the sea, the Bristol Channel, but it was the sea, and I don't know, it was a town with a lot of character, and it was actually because the mines were all open, then the steelworks was open. People had money, and it was like kind of a thriving, bustling town. By the
Oh,
time I left to go to Leeds in '76, they'd shut the steelworks down to sort of third capacity, and then a lot of the coal mines had been closed. And then what happened with Margaret Thatcher in the '80s, then left the town.
oh,
I mean, basically the town's pretty much the same as it was, but there's just no money there, so it's just a
yeah.
tough
Do,
little
do
town.
you do
But
you speak Welsh? Do you,
no, they wouldn't let us speak Welsh. There was actual
oh,
government policy that prevented you speaking Welsh when we were kids. We even had I was in a Welsh choir, which was outside the school. It was a private thing when I was a little
yeah.
kid. And some friends of my mum said, "Oh, you can sing. You should be in the choir." So I learned a lot of songs in Welsh, not knowing not knowing what they meant really, but which was strange because later in life I worked with a male voice choir on an album of mine.
Yeah.
When we were in the pub, they start singing these songs, and I know them. And I didn't even know I knew them. They'd start singing them, and I'd sing along. And I was, wow, I don't know how I know this, and it was because of Oscar Wilde's choir back in 1967 or something.
But North
Well,
Wales is different, though, isn't it? Because North Wales, they're actually very proud of the Welsh language.
well, we are now. And when I was a teenager, we were very, that was the big issue. The sort of issue of the day was like the Welsh Language Society and Plaid Cymru were very involved in getting the language back, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a language that was dying. It was a rural language, and it was spoken by a large proportion of the population. It was just government, typical kind of imperialist government policy,
Oh,
trying to get rid of it and make everyone assimilate. And you have a modern Britain where everyone speaks English, and now it's gone full circle. By the late 80s, people were setting up
yeah,
private Welsh schools. Kids do full immersion and learn Welsh. My cousin Becky did that. Then they get changed it. So then the media was only in English before that. So then they had a bilingual media. Then government and tax system, the legal system, is all bilingual now.
yeah,
So people have to learn the language if they want to get a job.
yeah. Because when you go to North Wales, all the road signs are so like in
Yeah,
Welsh and in English as well.
yeah,
Like,
and
yeah,
everything's bilingual now, which is interesting because like I said, the industrial port towns of the south coast of Wales weren't really Welsh speaking. You didn't hear Welsh spoken there very much. It was more everyone had an uncle who spoke Welsh, but nobody
oh,
really. You were more likely to hear Polish or Urdu in Newport than you were to hear Welsh. When I was,
oh,
yeah, the, all the towns are very, are quite cosmopolitan in a weird way. So there's
yeah,
a lot of Somalians and West Indians came to Newport. I think the Somalians came during the war. There were a lot of people working at the docks who were from Somalia, and then obviously with Windrush there was a big West Indian community there, and
oh,
a lot of Indian Pakistan people.
yeah.
So
Well,
I loved Newport. It wasn't like I don't know, it wasn't like a rural Welsh town. It was this kind of strange, gritty, cosmopolitan seaport.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But yeah, when I was a kid, I was just interested in. We played rugby and we played soccer. I played 3 games a weekend.
yeah,
I,
yeah. So what about music? What was
I
so like a music scene?
I wasn't that interested in music. It was weird. I was just a wannabe football hooligan, and
Oh,
suddenly I heard T-Rex, and then everything was going to be into music. I remember I bought a little snare drum and me and my friends were trying to start a band, but this was like, 72, 73. But then nothing happened because I think prog rock took over and glam sort of faded away. And then all our favorite bands like Bowie and rock music got so big, they weren't really acceptable. And there was really not much going on. It was very strange. My teenage years were stolen from by prog rockers. We used to go and see these terrible bands. I've had arguments with people still. That people think, Yes, oh yes, we're a really great band. I was going like, no, they were boring. When I was 16, Yes was the most boring thing on the planet. It was really boring. I didn't want to hear. I stood by the back door of the Capitol Theatre waiting for it to end, so my friends and I could get the train home. We just thought it was dull.
oh God.
We were ripe for punk rock. I was like a ticking time bomb when punk started. I was just like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Aidan said that he remembers the days of the campaign to upgrade the status of the Welsh language. Aidan he's my husband. He's also my tech support. So he said that good sound in picture, which is always nice to hear when it's a good sound in picture. So, yeah, talking about, so you bought a drum kit
I
when you
didn't
were
have
young.
it at first, and I remember arguing with my parents that I should have a drum kit, and they're not really wanting me to have a drum kit because they feared.
It was really loud.
But in the end, we got one, and we went to a shop called Morris White Music, and he was actually a drummer, and it was the music shop in Newport. And then, and I remember I got drum lessons from my grandmother's hairstylist, who was called Stefan Young. His salon was Salon Stefan. He used to cut my hair as well, and he was a German prisoner of war from the Second World War who liked Wales so much he stayed, and he'd learned to play jazz drums when he was a kid. So it was a very great guy as well. But one of those people who's like, I'm not going back to Germany. I'm staying here. he thought he liked all about paradiddles and
Yeah, yeah,
which was quite, you know, on that one really what I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to play like maybe Gary Glitter style drums like that. But I did learn a few technical things, but I wasn't terribly good at it. And my main claim to fame when I moved up to Leeds in '76, right as punk rock was starting, was the first day I met Andy and Mark, who you saw. They were the singers in the Mekons. They were the first
yeah,
people in this new town. At this, they were maybe my freshers group leaders, and they walked me around the college and showed me where everything was. And basically, they just took me to the pub, and I told them I had a drum kit, and then Andy said, "Well, you better get it up here because our mate Andy Gill, he's forming a band. It's going to be a cross between Dr. Feelgood and the Velvet Underground." And I was like, "I know Dr. Feelgood are. I better find Velvet Underground." And that was it, really. As soon as the band started coming through, the Pistols came through, the Clash, we go and watch the bands, and we sort of decided the message of what punk rock was, that it was anyone could do it. So
yeah, yeah.
Tom said
So,
to me,
so the drums is your first love,
"Yeah,
because
only
you
like,
don't play drums much now, but that's was that your first love, the drum, playing
yeah."
the drum?
So it was a way in, you know. It was my way into the sort of Mekons because nobody had a drum kit, and all
Oh,
those couple of guys had guitars. Hugo had a drum kit, so it's like me and Hugo were the drummers, and I think it's just a strange time. Oh, you got a drum kit, you're in the band, and the Mekons was
oh,
kind of a clique of people. You know, a lot of them had been to school, high school together in the south
yeah,
of it before turning up in Leeds. Mekons and Gangafor, so it was kind of interesting for me to be able to get into that clique, being a sort of provincial hick Welsh boy. But
oh.
they let me in because I had a drum kit.
Yeah, but then apparently this is sort of like reading up on the history of the Mekons. When the drummers, so no, you started playing guitars because it's like people left the band or other band members left, so you play the guitar and
No,
maybe
actually, the first time I played the guitar was because Roz, who was our bass player, she left. Well, one day we were rehearsing, and she said, "I'm just going down the shop," and,
yeah.
and she didn't come back for 38 years.
Oh no.
But she formed another band with some other friends of ours, Delta 5, and they asked me to
Oh,
be in that. So when that started, they said, "You can play guitar." I was going, "I can't really play guitar. I know two chords," and they're going, "That's good, that's enough." But they knew I liked Hawkwind, so they wanted like Hawkwind style guitar. So I thought I can muster that up. So I was
oh,
Delta 5, but then we had a couple of independent singles that were quite successful, and we ended up on Virgin Records for some reason, which is doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Basically, we were a band, of DIY punks, and
yeah.
we end up on Virgin, and we get, unsurprisingly, we get sacked by Virgin. And after our bass player left, Mary, the new bass player who replaced Roz, left to join the Venezuelan Symphony Orchestra, which I'm always very proud of that fact.
Wow.
The only way out of the Mekons is to join the Venezuelan Symphony Orchestra. And then Andy went off tour managing, and it became like this. We all decided if we were going to continue, we had to sort of swap instruments, and make it completely different. I mean, this is around the time that Public Image's first album came out. It sounded so different to punk. It was
Yeah.
it was like kind of licensed to go from like 2-chord thrashing into, I don't know what it was, more ambient, weirds, more interesting sort of music.
Yeah.
So,
But
so around
the
that time, I was playing piano, and I was playing a bit of guitar, singing more. So
Yeah. But now you're back as the Mekon 77 and you're playing the drums again.
yeah,
Is
very.
that so?
It you know, I thought when I thought about it, I started trying to play him, and Roz, you know, finally came back from the shop, and she was the bass player. And she said, it, when we first did it, I think in 2016, and Roz just said, you know how you used to always slow down, and now you used to always speed up. We used to have to keep you from speeding up. I was going, yeah. She says, now you slow down. I was going like, right. Well, we should have reformed the band when I was about 38 or something, because then I would have played the correct tempo all the way. So now my problem is I slow down. I get tired when I'm playing the drums and I slow down. So I have to keep really concentrated because I'm playing drum parts that were written by initially, a 19-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I'm a man in my 60s trying to do this. It's a peculiar thing to do, but it actually works. There's something about the Mekons in the sense that the most part from me and Tom, most of the other guys in the band hadn't really continued with music through the years. They had these rich and fulfilling other lives. Me and Tom had just, plowed away with the Mekons. And so when we came back to it, it was almost like we don't have to pretend to play like the original Mekons. We still do, because I hadn't played the drums for such a long time, and so my drumming is frozen like a mosquito in amber. I'm frozen in the
No,
night.
but oh my god, when I saw you though, you're a very what I call powerful drummer.
Yeah,
Amazing to watch.
definitely that. My influence was the Glitter Band probably, and Slade. That's what I wanted to drum like.
Oh, well, well, looking at your Discogs entry, I mean, it's actually amazing because there were loads of bands that you were in, not just the Mekons. But I mean, if I sort of like ask you about all those bands, we'll probably need sort of like 2 or 3 hours. So like do that. So I'm just gonna ask you about some of them. The one is the Three Johns. I didn't even know this because I found a couple of 12-inch vinyl from I
Yeah,
work at B Records, and I found sort of like a couple of 12-inch of the Three John. So I bought it and listened to it, but I didn't realize that you're actually one of the Three Johns until I saw you in Leeds, and my friend said, "Oh, he's in the Three Johns." So it was like, so
well, that band formed because, like I said, we signed to Virgin, and I dropped out of art school. And at that
yeah.
time, now you think all this stuff, it costs you money to go to university. At that time, the local county council in South Wales gave me money to go to university. So when Virgin sacked us, me and Tom both tried to get jobs in Leeds as bus conductors, but they were getting rid of that because they were going down to one-man buses. We didn't
Yeah.
want to drive the buses. We had some mates who were bus conductors. Now that seemed like a kind of doable job, but we couldn't get social security because we'd been on, we were assigned to a major record label, and we didn't have any accounts, and we couldn't prove that we'd been paid by anyone. So we were just these kind of invisible people. So in the end, it was like the only way to get any money was to actually go back to university and get our grants from the local councils. So we did that, and so we effectively dropped down a year. So suddenly I was in a year with a bunch of people, had arrived in Leeds the year after me, and in that year it was John Hyatt and John Diamond.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just started. I don't know. We sort of decided we should have. I think it was around the time of the royal wedding in 1981. We were still at college, and that was sort of.
Oh, I see.
And there was a concert on the Woodhouse Moor called Funk the Royal Wedding, which was a bunch of kind of like arty Leeds funk bands and people playing. So we got really drunk and we decided to crash the stage and play some songs we'd written, and in honor of Princess Diana, and they wouldn't let us. We had a bit of a fight, and they wouldn't let us. But after that, we were like, okay, we should be a proper group. We should be a group so we can get a gig and we could do stuff. So it was more
Yeah.
like art. Started off more like art performance, but around that time, I did have I was involved with a couple of other guys with a label called CNT that had put some Mekons stuff out, and they put the second Sisters of Mercy single out, and I kind of was there with that. And then for a little while, Craig from the Sisters of Mercy, when the mission went, he went off to the Canary Islands and got a job. So they asked me if I played bass. So I actually was a card-carrying member of the Sisters of Mercy at one point. And Andy Taylor, also known as Andy Eldridge, he programmed their drum machines, and I got really fascinated. Actually, I sold my first drum kit to him when we signed Virgin. So he bought that drum kit off me and painted it black, so it was good. No, but we got this interest in drum machines. So when they moved to drum machines, I would buy whatever drum machine he just bought. He'd show me how to work it, then I would go and buy it. And the three became a drum machine. Became a drum machine. Actually, the first drum machine we used was we rehearsed in a spare bedroom at our house that we lived in, and it was Seething Wells, the punk poet who went to London and became Susan Williams, the journalist. But he had an old drum machine it was one of them ones with buttons on it that said like Bossa Nova or Rumba. And two of the buttons together, then you get those two beats going over each other. So you could make up some really weird sort of electronic krautrock, Kraftwerky type things in the privacy of the spare bedroom. So basically the three Johns forms just like getting drunk, switching the drum machine on, switching the set machine, and shouting random things from books. So
well, talking about that drum machine, you actually called it Hugo.
Yeah.
Is that something to do with Hugo Burnham?
Absolutely. See a tribute to my good friend Hugo.
Yeah. Well, I'm also like thinking because when I was sort of like Googling you, you've got a brother who's like God, what's his name? David
Langford.
David Langford, and he's
famous. Like, he's famous fiction person
for writing science fiction things, and apparently there's an award called Hugo Awards.
Yeah.
Won quite a lot of those Hugo Awards for writing science fiction. So
he used to do like what's the word? Not a fanzine. I think maybe like a fanzine, and it was like best. I think he won the Hugo Award for best. Like he kind of
science fiction or something. Yeah,
but like the scene, like he was kind of like he wrote the news, like he still does it. You've got a thing called Ansible that comes out every month, and it's got all the news of, who's who in science fiction, what books are coming out, all the gossip, what publishers is reissuing what, and who's suing who, and who's died. It's so he's been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, but Hugo is more sort of like Hugo Burnham, the drummer. That's what you saw. Yeah. Well, actually,
Hugo's, but I've just got one bloke and a drum machine.
Yeah. Well, my friend Alex, he actually sort of like wanted me to ask you if I could have Hugo on as the drummer.
I'll send you his details.
Well, not Hugo Burnham, but Hugo the drum machine. Which I thought, God, that is so weird.
Okay.
Imagine having
arrange an interview. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
I have his manager's number, so that would be fun.
Yeah. Well, Aidan said that again, this is Merce, but he said that he got a grant from Stockport. He went to Trinity College Dublin. He was also active on the music scene there, and he said that he's sure that he saw the Mekons in Dublin, but he can't remember where or when. It must be because he was there in the 70s, I think, late 70s, 79.
Yeah, it could have been. We played quite a lot in Manchester.
In Dublin.
Oh, in
he
Dublin.
Said that he saw you. Yeah, he saw you in Dublin.
Oh no, there was a gig. There was a gig in Dublin called Dark Space, and it was a winter storm. It was early '79, and there was 3 English bands meant to be going. It was Throbbing Gristle, Public Image, and the Mekons. And both the other 2 bands couldn't get there because of the weather. So we headlined this festival. It was a 24-hour thing in an arts centre in Dublin, and U2 opened for us.
Oh my god!
Yeah, they came in the room. He's like, I think they had school uniforms on when they turned up. And they came in the dressing room and changed into their, black rock and
Oh,
roll, and went up on stage. And Mary, our bass player, came in the dressing room and said, "You got to come and see these guys. They're really good." So we wandered out, and I watched it. I was going like, "This is terrible." It's like it's like punk rock never arrived in Ireland or something, because they were like a stadium rock band. I said, in my mind, it was like, this is never going anywhere. But of course,
oh
I was completely wrong.
yeah.
There was Bono up on the stage doing his big gestures, and it was kind of crazy.
Well, you're not the only
I didn't like them though, but a lot of my friends really liked U2 and were impressed
one.
that they opened for us. But I've never had a connection to that band. I don't know why.
No, you're not. You're not the only one though, because Aiden is actually. When I met him, he said exactly the same thing that he thought when he saw, because he was part of the Dublin music scene there. He thought that when he saw U2, that they're not going to make it. And
Yeah,
you know, always sort of like tease him. It's like your famous last words is that U2 are not going to make it.
yeah. They seem strangely old fashioned, but I guess that's what, after the shock of punk, I guess that's what a lot of people wanted to get back to.
Yeah,
More predictable, kind of like entertainment based rock music rather than anything too challenging.
yeah,
That's what I've always thought about. But we were hanging out with bands like The Fall and Gang of Four. So it was like,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
bands that never really got assimilated into the mainstream. They just, you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny. Yeah, I still, when U2 comes on the radio, I still have to say, "Who is this?" Or wait till the end of the record to find out who it is. And I go like, "I thought it was them." I still don't like them. I don't know why.
I still don't like. Well, well,
Sorry.
no, it's all right. Um, well, I've mentioned earlier that I worked in a record shop called King B in Manchester. And at work, we actually have a photograph of you, Mark Riley, and Johnny Cash together.
Oh, oh,
And I've found
that's
out
a good
on
photograph.
it's really good. It was just sort of like up there on the shelf. It was sort of like
It's
I've
backstage at Manchester Apollo, 1988, I think.
oh well, I found out that you actually did like a tribute album for like a Johnny
Yeah.
Cash. Yeah. So how did that come about? And
Um,
what's why Mark Riley as well?
well,
What's your connection?
me and him were mates. After he left the Fall, he had a band called the Creepers, and I
Yeah.
produced it. And he had a label called Intape, and I did a lot of sort of indie rock producing for them with bands like the Janitors and the Gay Bikers on Acid. And
Okay.
me and Mark, I mean, the Mekons and the Fall have been kind of like Pennine nemesises. We'd sort of run into him a few times, and Mark E. Smith thought we were student wankers and didn't want us to. The Fall weren't meant to fraternize with people like us, but me and Mark just got on really well. So actually, I have a lot of friends who were in the Fall at one time or another. Like Dave Milner or Martin Brammer.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I loved the Fall. I thought the Fall were great, and Mark E. Smith was always quite friendly to me in person. Then would
Yeah.
say the most horrible things about us in the press. So, but I just took it that that's his shtick. But
Yeah.
as a band, I mean, you couldn't make that up. It's so fantastic. The whole Fall legacy and all the. I mean, so many of those songs I still listen to that stuff now. It's just really great.
Yeah.
But Mark, Mark's a very affable and outgoing guy, and we both just decided we really liked Johnny Cash. And then he had the idea that we used to drive around with a Johnny Cash cassette in his car, And then he'd say, we should make an album, me and you, and make an album with all Johnny Cash songs. But the feeling at the time was that Johnny Cash was being forgotten, that he was slipping away, and that people weren't, young people weren't into his music, and we thought this would be kind of a radical thing to do. So I was sort of the cautious one, and I was saying, well, maybe it's not just me and you singing it. Maybe we get some other people in as well. Maybe we make it a benefit album. Then we've got the excuse that if it's not very good, we can say, well, it's a benefit album. So we did it as a benefit for Terence Higgins Trust, which was a AIDS charity in London.
Oh,
But we
okay,
also,
yeah.
at that time, you have to remember, it was it's the period when the governments across the world were ignoring the AIDS crisis and refusing to fund it. So
Yeah.
organizations like the Terence Higgins Trust were crucial. And we also had, friends dying, mid 80s. We knew a lot of people who died of AIDS, and it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it was a great great idea. And we went and met Cash at the Manchester Apollo, where that photograph was taken by Simon Taylor, I think his name was, the photographer. And there's me and Mark talking to Johnny Cash, and he's telling us he thinks it's a great idea and he'll support it in any way he can. And we're like, wow, what just
Yeah.
happened? So we met him
Did,
a couple more times. It was he was always very, very, very nice, very friendly. And then
did he ever sing with you? When
no, but I could have made that happen if I'd been a bit pushier. I could have. He told me, he said that he when I saw him at the Albert Hall, we had the record release party at the Pied Bull in Islington, and he said, well, I wish I'd known, because June and I would have stayed over a few days and come down there. And we were like, and I'm like, wow, I'm an idiot because I didn't ask him or tell him, but also I was just thinking, what would it be like having Johnny Cash in the dressing room of the Pied Bull in Islington with Frank Sidebottom and Pete Shelley, Mal
oh
from Cabaret Voltaire, and it would be such a weird scene. But yeah, and then he also said the last time I saw him that if we were going to do it, if we ever did another one, he would like to sing a song on it, and maybe me and Mark should write him a song. So
yeah,
we thought about that for a while, and then it was just I moved to the States, and I don't know, it was too big a burden. All right,
oh.
now we're going to sit down and write a song for Johnny Cash. It was like, uh,
Do you regret not doing it?
yeah, oh yeah, immensely.
Yeah.
I could have, if I've been like one of those, I've been desperate to climb the ladder, I would have been like constantly pestering Johnny Cash and sending songs every week. But when I moved to the States, I saw him play a few times, but I never tried to get in touch with him or anything like that. I just thought that was kind of uncool.
Oh.
Well, when we had a purpose, it was good. But
Yeah, yeah. When did you move to? Did you just go straight to Chicago, or and
yeah, well,
Why did you choose that?
I chose it because a number of reasons. But it was the place where I felt comfortable, and I knew people in Chicago. So my wife was from Chicago. She was a friend of a
Oh,
friend. So but we used to go on tour with the Three Johns first, and then the Mekons, and we'd be in hotel rooms and airports and radio stations and gigs. And then
yeah,
Chicago was the only place where we'd stay with a friend, and then we'd have a glimpse of sort of normal life. And I think the first Three Johns tour, we said, let's go back and stay for a week at the end of it. And we just went kind of native. I fell in love with Chicago. It seemed like I don't know, it was a friendly town. It was affordable and friendly. And there was a
yeah,
scene there, music scene, that was, when I moved there, I've kind of figured a lot of things were ending. I was in my early 30s, and I thought the whole music thing was kind of drawing to a close. So this was this whole new adventure that I was moving to America, and no fucking idea what I was going to do, really. And Chicago kind of embraced me arriving and supported me massive.
yeah,
All these things happened in Chicago that would never have happened to me if I'd stayed in Leeds. So
yeah. Because I mean, I believe you're a legend there. Because you formed bands, or you've done a lot of sort of like gigging, like local gigs and stuff in Chicago. But what I was gonna ask you before is your love for country music, like Johnny Cash and stuff. Did you not think that maybe Nashville would be a better place for you because you love country music so much?
I don't think they would have got me in Nashville when I first arrived.
Oh,
No, I think it took Chicago because the Mekons were still kind of active, and we managed to energize the Mekons again through Touch and Go Records, who I said I went out with last night, and it was a slow process, and then we had an agent who was based in Chicago who'd been booking us before. We got
yeah.
we were on AM Records, and we got on a major label, then got fired. So it was an odd way to be working because we were more like an art collective than a rock and roll band at certain points, and these these labels couldn't really understand us, and we went with Touch and Go in Chicago, and they kind of got us and encouraged us to do whatever we wanted to do. So
Yeah.
at that time, I met some guys in Chicago, and there was a band here called the Sundowners who actually played my wedding, and they were these three old guys that played 5 nights a week, 7 hours a night, both kinds of music, country and western.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, and they get me up on stage with them. And Steve, Mekons drummer, would go and drum with them because he moved to Chicago as well. Steve Goulden, so that was kind of interesting. He moved there a couple of years before me, and
Oh, I see.
so
Yeah.
so when I moved there, we were going there anyway because Steve was there, so it was kind of easy. It was easy. That's Steve who used to be in Graham Parker and Aruma, and
Yeah, that's right.
now
Yeah.
he's a drummer you should talk to. He's got
So
proper,
like
he's got
hopefully.
proper drum stories.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
played, he played with David Bowie on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully I can sort of like get him on the show as well. And I
Oh,
believe you
I will
could.
connect you. He's got much better drumming stories than me.
Oh, thank you,
He
thank
got
you.
paid 30 quid for watching the detectives.
And Hugo Burnham, I believe, is also in Chicago. He lives there as well.
No, he lives on the East Coast,
Oh, I see. Okay.
Massachusetts. Yeah. But I'm
Yeah.
excited because they're doing some gigs, and it's great. I think it's really, like I said, it's that thing about the Gang of Four is their music was never really assimilated into the mainstream. So when you hear them actually play in their
Yeah.
style, it's really fresh. It doesn't sound like dated. It's kind of amazing. Don't know how they did it. They've done a magic trick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Gang of Four's Damaged Goods. It was actually massive in the Philippines, and of the
Really?
four, so like the ones that it was,
That's so
and
cool.
and I was hoping that you played Damaged Goods that time, but the other two songs that you did, the other two Gang of Four songs, that they were also being played in the Philippines as well, and because
Right.
it's funny that you mentioned the Fall and the Mekons and Gang of Four. Of those three, I'd say that Gang of Four was actually the ones that really we know them in the Philippines.
Right.
The
Right.
Mekons not so much, and the Fall I think would just sound like Creep, like CREEP, that sort of
Yeah.
like. But if you talk to sort of like a Filipino like music fan, and then you mention Gang of Four, immediately they'll say Damaged Goods because that's just such an amazing
Yeah.
song. It was really big.
I
And of
remember.
course,
I remember
yeah, sorry.
the day they wrote that song. It's funny. They came up with it, and then it was on a cassette tape, and Roz had it on a cassette tape. And we were listening to it and just going, right. They finally got where they wanted to be. It was like this great moment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm hoping to sort of like see them in October, so I'll be looking forward to that. Will you be going with them as well, like when they do the?
I'm going to try and see if I can see them in the States, or if maybe I'm over in Britain. I would love to. I mean, I know they're kind of like hanging out most of the summer, so I'm going to try and meet up with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you, in Chicago, you formed a band called is it the Waco or Waco Brothers?
Waco Brothers.
Waco Brothers.
Yeah.
And the Mekons drummer, Steve, he's also a member of that band.
He was, but he moved to New York a few years ago. So
Oh,
Waco
great.
Brothers essentially a local band. So
Oh, and it
and
says that on Google, it says that it's like a country punk. Now, that's the first time I've heard that kind of genre, which is country punk.
well, it's kind of old. You know what? It's old guys who were in punk bands playing country music because they love it. That's how it started. And the
Oh,
idea was that the idea was we were only going to do it in pubs for beer. You know, it was like it was going to be a release from being touring musicians. But then
yeah.
people heard it, and it was quite sort of people seemed to like it, and then we ended up touring.
And
So
do you still sort of like
Waco Brothers, yeah, I just came back from 6 nights on the Outlaw Country cruise ship. So
oh, that's yeah. So you were
yeah,
actually on that sort of like I thought it was like a shipping like a holiday for you, but you were actually doing gigs.
no, it was work. There was like I can't remember how many bands are on there, but we were
Yeah.
with the Mavericks, Lucinda Williams, Steve Earle. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's what else? The Vandaliers, Bobby Bear Jr., the old 97s, the Waco Brothers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a serious thing, you know, a serious FM serious thing. So, and it's 6 stages on the boat, really great sound systems. You know,
Oh, wow.
we're not like the entertainment for people on a cruise. It's music fans going
It's like a
to
festival.
be on.
Yeah, it's
It's basically a floating 6-day music festival.
that sounds amazing. That's so
It's
good.
exhausting. It's exhausting. And I played so many times, but if you look on YouTube, there's loads of funny videos of. Um, we ended the set on the. We played the last set on the pool deck, which is the big outdoor deck, on the
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon before the boat comes back, and we had it was great. It was just we had Joe King Carrasco, who used to be on Stiff Records playing violin. Bill Kirchin and Rosie Flores got up and took the guitars off me and Dean. Um,
Yeah.
different Alejandro Escovedo's drummer Hector got up and played drums. So we all ended up being removed from the stage. It was really funny, and we ended up in the audience. It was jolly good,
Yeah. But
jolly good
what's
fun.
it like? What's it like though? Because is it steady? You're like performing on a ship, or so like is what if there's sort of like a wave
Oh
or
no,
something?
it does. In some of the rooms, it's better on the open deck, but in some of the rooms, if you're near the very front of the ship, I think that's the problem. The very front of the ship, there's a theater on the 12th floor. And this is like a floating city. And I was lucky enough not to have to play in that theater this time. But
Oh,
my mate Bobby Bear Jr. was in there, and he plays the tambourine with his foot while playing acoustic guitar, which is quite amusing. But he couldn't do it because he kept falling over. So, and at some point, he banged his head on the microphone, and his head was bleeding, and it was just
oh
a
no.
very strange entertainment. But everyone in the audience was kind of swaying back and forwards, like, whoa.
No,
Very
I
very
don't
odd.
think that's for me though. So it's like
Yeah.
um, there's
First time
another
I
one
did
that
it,
I was yep.
first time I did it, Chris Christopherson was on the boat, and there's a big theater, and I had a few cocktails, and I'm going to see Chris Christopherson. It's obviously packed out, so there's no standing room only at the back. And then I just kind of forgot I was on a boat. I was listening to his songs. It was really lovely, and he's singing his songs, and it just sounds fantastic. And suddenly, it's like there's an earthquake, and I'm like in this theater that you can't see that you're on a boat. It's like you're in a building, and the whole building just lurches to one side. It was kind of terrifying. Terrifying. Then I
Oh
remember I
dear.
was on a boat and I was okay.
No, that definitely not my kind of festival though. But
Yeah,
it's it sounds lovely, but not for
I mean,
me.
there is an element to it that's kind of alarming, that you're on this boat and everybody's, you're just sailing around the world doing some kind of insane carbon footprint.
Yeah,
I mean, I had some kind of worries about it, and but we talked to a lot of people who work. So a lot of people on the boat work from the Philippines, and they go off for 6 months, and
yeah, yeah,
the woman who was my steward on my corridor, she was really great, and I think they're encouraged not to talk to the staff about their kind of like their situation or what they get paid or anything. But she was saying she actually really likes it. It's really great. You go away for about 6 months and you make so much money. It's really, really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's still this kind of like you're being served by these people. It's very odd. But
Yeah, I think Filipinos are everywhere. Anyways, I'm sure there are lots of Filipinos in Chicago as well.
oh yeah, no. So we have friends. I was gonna say my Sally from the Mekons had a 60th birthday party in a Filipino karaoke bar, and it was the best night. It was the best night ever. It was like they wouldn't let us leave at the end of the night. Everyone was just because we were kind of like vaguely professional singers, and everybody. But there were people who just go in the karaoke bar who were much better singers than us.
Well,
It was a really amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but Filipinos are actually very good. They can sing any song.
They like to party as well.
Yeah, yeah, we do like to party and food. I don't know if you've been to a Filipino party, but there's always loads of food if you
Oh
go
yeah.
to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We had that.
But yeah, but so that's the music side of your sort of like career. But I also found out that you've done in the 80s and early 90s that you've done sort of like a comic strips. You're the illustrator for these comic strips, and it was published in Record Mirror magazine, and then later on the NME.
Yeah, we
And
got it up to about 4 different magazines. We sort of did this homemade syndication, and it was actually around the country quite a bit, and around the world. It was in the LA Weekly as well in LA.
and you're known as Chuck Death.
Yeah, that was me.
That's you. Is it so like is it like Mad Magazine? Do you know? I don't know if you remember in the 80s is like the American comic magazine. So like is it
Yeah, in
something
the
like
sense
that?
that it was satirical and ludicrous. Yeah, I mean, we just say stupid things about people in bands. It was basically a parody of rock journalism more than anything else, where we just make up stuff. It was like people who misunderstood everything that was going on. So
Yeah.
the joke was kind of on us. So we'd say things like, "The Clash tried to change the world by having words on their trousers," and then we'd be a picture of like Joe Strummer, and it would say "nevertheless" on his trousers, or Mick Jones would have the word "wooden" written on his trousers. So
It's you called it Great Pop Things, and apparently it's available as a book format. So
yeah,
you've got
it was
all
2 books. Penguin did one, and then I think they surprised themselves by doing something so weird, and they didn't know where to put it, so they didn't put it in the comedy section. They put it in the graphic novel section.
oh, I see.
Definitely not a graphic novel. But there was
Are they
there
still
was nowhere
available?
for it to go. A cartoon book about music. I mean, yeah. But
Yeah.
then a smaller printer did a much better job. A guy called Steve Connell at Verse Chorus Press did a thing which was much more comprehensive, and he found a better format for the strips because they were hard to read in the Penguin one because they couldn't make the book big enough. So they were kind of like shrunk. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of it. There's a lot of text in them and a lot of stuff going on. It was hard to. So it wasn't that successful, but I thought the second version was much better, and it kind of brought it up to date. But there did come a time where we were like, can't do this anymore. I'd be on tour and I'd be lying on a hotel floor at 6 a.m. drawing a cartoon with my bandmates going, "What are you doing? Turn the light off." I can't turn the light off. I can't draw. why are you drawing? Because I got to get this to London by Thursday, and I've got to draw it now. But my mate used to Carlton B. Morgan, who was Colin B. Morton in the strip. He used to send me all the scripts in letter form, so they would come in the mail. It was this is it's so weird. We could have done emails, I guess. Maybe that was before emails, but it was just so funny. I just remember the mail would come and I'd get a little envelope and it'd be all bits of paper and notes, and I'd have to kind of put it all together into a comic strip. It's like a stream of consciousness, but sometimes I'll be sitting looking at it and I just start laughing so hard because
Do you still do it? Do you still do sort of like illustrations and stuff?
I do some stuff, yeah, bits and bobs. Yeah. I work, my work as more like an illustrator, and I do stuff for I've just got one. What the latest Mojo? I've got a drawing in, so that's gonna be quite good. But I haven't done something for them before.
Yeah,
Carlton was just a genuinely hilarious, eccentric humorist. And it was kind of then my job to bend the whole thing into a cartoon strip. But it was good. It was like having, looking back on it now, it was really hard work at the time. But I was a cartoonist for a while, But then I stopped. And when I stopped, I was glad when I stopped because it was like deadlines.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about the strip was that some people really hated it, and then some people really liked it. And we have reliable information that David Bowie, who we took the mick out of relentlessly, he really liked it. And then Morrissey saw the magazine, saw my drawing of him, and threw the magazine across a room and said, "Why do they always draw my chin so big?" So after that, his chin just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then Morrissey fans at his gigs all wore fake Morrissey chins, and it's like,
I need to get a copy of that book.
It's around. Probably go to the charity shops. It's probably in there.
Oh wow! So, I'm gonna Google that now and see if I could find sort of like an image of it somewhere, because I just saw it. It's called Great Pop Thing. So, hopefully,
it's pretty funny. But the fall issued a fatwa on us. I'm not sure it's entirely serious, but in their fanzine, I think their fanzine was Cog Sinister or something. Or that was the name of their management. But they published a strip from the NME, ripped out the NME, and it was going shopping with Mark E. Smith, and it was him going and buying toilet paper and groceries. But in his like Mark E. Smith voice, he was going, "I'll buy some toilet paper. Now I'll buy some carrots." And it's so moronic and stupid. But he published it in their fanzine. He scrolled on it, "Stupid fucking student rubbish." And then at the bottom in little letters it said, pointed to our names, Chuck Death and Colin B. Morton. It pointed to our names. It said, "Heads in a bin bag to Cog Sinister offices."
Oh God!
So there's probably still angry Fall fans out there trying to decapitate my head in a bin bag and give it to Marky.
That's really interesting. But anyways, I'm gonna ask because I know that you haven't had your breakfast yet, and I've still got a few questions. But about your record label, Bloodshot Records, is that your own or?
That was never my label.
Oh, it's not your.
That was a rumor because once the Alumni Association of Leeds University sent a letter to Bloodshot Records, which said Jon Langford, owner Bloodshot Records, on the front. Because they were trying to get money off me, and that's the only way they could track me down, apparently. But no, I was never the owner of Bloodshot Records, and Bloodshot Records ceased to exist in its original form, and now it's something else. But we're not involved with it in any way.
You're not? Oh, okay, all right. So you haven't got a record label then?
No, we have a new record label.
You got?
The Waco Brothers have a label called Plenty Tough Records, and the Mekons have a label called Sin Records. But,
And you're
but
involved in that one.
we're involved in both of those, but we rely on the kindness and expertise of others to run them. I would not ever try to run a record label. But running a record label is like getting a pile of 20-pound notes and put them in the middle of the room and just setting fire to them. That would be, in fact, that might be more rewarding.
Oh, yeah. Well, right, well, I've got sort of like this regular questions that I ask before I let you go. I don't think I remember seeing you twirl. Do you twirl when you play the drums? Do you do that?
That thing.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea how to do that.
Oh, you know.
And
Okay.
it would have been frowned upon during punk rock.
Oh, really?
I think so, yeah.
I
During
didn't know.
my day, there wasn't many people twirling.
Oh, see, I just thought it's really good when they do that. It's like,
I
you know,
don't know how to do it.
you don't know.
We did
Okay.
have, the Mekons were slightly controversial for that. We had one song which had something that could almost be described as a drum solo in it, a song called Travera Trousers, and people thought that was a bit odd, you know,
Oh, okay.
because we were against everything.
Oh. I think I remember so like make artistic. You're the one who opened the show last. I think in one of his lyrics, like
Yeah, he's fantastic. He did that. He didn't have to do that. So because Scritty Politti dropped out, he came and we needed someone to open, and I asked him.
yeah.
The promoter said he could sell this place out anytime he wanted. He won't come and do it, but he did come and do it because he's a good mate.
I actually didn't realize that you were behind me when they were on because he said something like, I like this drummer. He doesn't talk or something like that. And then I think he looked at you. So,
Yeah.
like, and then that's when I realized, oh, is he the drummer?
Yep.
Yeah. But so another thing is, do you have any drumming heroes?
Drumming heroes.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, actually. I've got a theory that the best drummers are women. So, and I could name Kat from the X, Al Olive, who was in the Slits and the Raincoats, Janet Bean from 11th Dream Day. It goes on. Who else is there? Linda Pittman is a friend of mine in New York who plays with a baseball project, but she used to be in a band called Zuzu's Petals. And that's my pet theory that women drummers play very different to men drummers, and
that's very interesting. It's very interesting. So like,
well, those would be four of my favorite drummers, but there are more. I think what was surprising, not surprising, but quite moving to me was when Charlie Watts died. How many of my drum friends were actually really, really upset. We got used to it. We kind of like desensitized to people we loved, famous people we don't know dying. But I think with Charlie Watts, it really hit a lot of people, like Hugo particularly, and Steve Goulding, who'd met him, and a lot of my drumming mates were like, "This is a big one." And then the Waco Brothers lost our drummer, Joe Camarillo, during the pandemic, and he died at the beginning of 2021, and that was.
Is that COVID? Is that COVID?
No, COVID. He was hiding from COVID, but had a kind of litany of other health issues that just got him. But so that was, but he was a big Charlie Watts fan as well. I think if anyone's sort of the drummer's drummer, I think in America it's probably Levon Helm, people from the band, and then Charlie from the Stones. But my favorite drummer when I was a kid was B.J. Wilson from Procol Harum.
Oh, right.
Who got asked to join Led Zeppelin when they started. Jimmy Page asked him to be in Led Zeppelin, and he said no because he liked Procol Harum. He's a very weird, interesting drummer. So, but like Bill Ward from Black Sabbath.
Yeah, because you're also like a prog rock fan. So, like,
Like that, not prog rock.
I'm sorry, that's not like no heavy metal. So like,
Uh,
heavy metal fan.
the only
Um,
matters. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I've got another one because I know that you don't play the drums a lot now, but
No.
when you were younger, when you were playing the drums, have you ever had any accidents or like what I'd call drumming disasters?
Um, there was a night in Newcastle where I fell backwards off the drum stool for reasons that I'm solely responsible for. Uh, during
It's
the song, I just disappeared. People that came picked me up and put me back on the drum stool.
that seems to be
It's
so
been a
like
very long day.
I think that seems to be sort of like a common problem with drummers.
But
Is
for
there
it,
a way where they can actually sort of like make sure that they don't
well,
fall back?
it's probably best not to drink before you play
Oh,
that.
were you able to finish the gig or?
Believe so. I'm not sure how satisfactory it was for anyone in the audience, but I think we got through it.
You got to, okay. Well, the last one now is: have you got any advice for aspiring drummers or
Um,
aspiring
uh,
musicians?
well, my son, it's actually interesting you say that because my son, over the last couple of years, has just taught himself how to play the drums, and he's got really good. And you know, basically, what I did, I just tapped away all the time, and it's what my German paratrooper drum teacher told me to do. He said, when you're at school, just be constantly getting every limb to do something different. So I'd be doing the hi hat with my left foot, the bass drum with my right foot, and a cymbal.
Yeah,
And I'd be doing all this stuff at school, and people would think I was really weird because I wouldn't even be making a sound, but I wouldn't be tapping on the desk really loud. I'd be tapping on my thigh, but I'd just be He said, make them all go, make them all do different things. If they're doing the same thing, you're doing it wrong. So
oh,
everything. So it was quite a good bit of advice, I thought.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sort of like making it loose, everything sort of like
Yeah.
loose as well, and
So you can play the drums where you hit everything at the same time, or you can syncopation is when you get, and
yeah.
that's what you need. I wasn't very good at syncopation. I was a bit of a pounder, but there you go.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you so much. But when are we going to see you again in the UK and the Mekons
Well,
as well?
not sure with the Mekons. I'm coming over in May, and I'm playing down in Wales, so I'll be in Newport. Yes,
Is that
a couple of gigs May
a
the 6th.
different band?
That's with my band, the Men of Gwent, and
Oh, I forgot to ask about that because I actually put it down in my script that Men of Gwent, but I just thought so. These
well,
are like
when
um
I moved to the States,
yeah.
I formed a band with a friend of mine and my cousin, so that I always had an excuse to go back to Newport for band meetings whenever I felt like it. But then it turned into a real band, and we've got a couple of albums out on a great label in Newport called Country Mile Records, and we're just working on another one. So the reason I'm coming back is I do a thing with a company in the States called Roots on the Rails, and they do tours, and they asked me if I'd be interested in taking a bunch of American music fans, or they could be from anywhere, on a trip around Wales. So we did it last May, and it was really successful. So I'm coming back for that. I've got an exhibit of my artwork at a gallery in Cwmbran in South Wales, and then we got a gig for the
Oh, wow.
on the Rails people. Then I go off for a week. Then we're going to cut an album. So we've been working on for about all through the pandemic. We were writing songs, and so
Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh
so,
wow.
sorry, someone airdropped me a lot of pictures of Jesus. That was nice.
So,
Oh, it wasn't Jesus. Just looked like Jesus. Jesus, his brother.
well, That sounds really interesting. I mean, I would love to sort of like go to. I don't think I've been to sort of like South. Maybe I have been to South Wales, Cardiff. I think I've been, but
Yeah, well,
Newport.
Newport's like next to Cardiff, but better.
Like, yeah. Oh, but
Yeah,
hopefully, well, I'm not so like sure, but hopefully, you know, I can go to see the exhibition as well. Because you said you're going to have an art exhibition
yeah,
in
that's
New.
at Llantarnum Grange in Cumbrain, and that's the day of the coronation. So going for
Oh,
full circle, it's going to be the Funk the Coronation gig. So we're going to play
oh,
funk music with Charles and Camille.
well, hopefully, I can ask my husband to sort of like do a day trip or maybe go for a
Yeah,
holiday in Newport
Newport's
in May.
brilliant. Newport's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. This
Yeah,
actually reminds me. So, like,
everything's so near. You go to the pub, walk to the gig, then you go to the hotel, and you go to the railway station. It's all within 5 feet of each other. It's brilliant.
well, Newport reminds me of. I don't know if you know of this sort of like duo. When Alicia Keys, New York came out, there's this duo who
Yeah,
did
yeah.
Newport. It always reminds me.
On the A30,
Yeah, that's
crazy in Newport.
yeah. That
Yeah,
always reminds me of that. It's not like those duo. I really love that actually. It was really-
no, it's it is what it is. Newport. It's a scruffy town that's been deprived of any sort of financial investment for about 30 years, but it's got a real character. There's a lot of crazy stuff goes on. I've got friends who play music there who, they never really kind of made a big success on a national level or anything like that.
yeah.
But every time I go back to Newport, there's a guy my age going, "Hey, you got to hear my new project. We've just done this," and it's like, and they play, and it's fantastic. I love it. It's really,
Oh,
people just doing it for their own reasons. It's very,
yeah, yeah.
very, very punk rock. Still.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, John, for
You.
saying yes. I know it's
I'll
way
send
too
you the
early.
details. I'll send you the details for those that weekend.
Oh yes, please. Yeah, I'd love that. Hopefully, I can go there and see you again.
All right, brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Your husband's
So,
name? Darius?
pardon?
What's your husband's name?
Aiden O'Rourke.
I just made up a completely new name for him. Thank you, Aidan, for taking.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right,
And
well,
I'll see you again, hopefully in May.
thanks for having
Thank.
me. Cheers.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, John. Bye. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I really enjoyed that chat with Jon Langford. He's absolutely amazing. And I think Wikipedia is right. He's known as a very funny man, a very funny person. And I really, really love people with a brilliant sense of humor. So thank you so much to Jon Langford for saying yes to Ask the Drummer. And next week, I mean, this is no secret now. I'm not. We're gonna do uh, a show with Zeke Manika of Orange Juice because this is gonna be sort of like second time lucky. Hopefully, you'll be okay. But yeah, so he's gonna be my guest next week. But once again, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, love music, love life, love, love, love drummers. And see you all again next week. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.